Right, we're doing the same subject matter again, but making a different atmosphere altogether. We're doing a stormy sky in February, say, out in the country out there where you get those thunderstorms, and creating a different atmosphere. Same image, but I've like the other one, I've drawn it up first just to save time and put masking fluid on the building and a few other bits and pieces. So now I'm going to do a stormy sky. Now this technique I worked out years ago, and it seems to work. And it's a bit of a signature of mine. When you go into a room full of paintings and you see a sky like this, you usually think, oh, Robin's done that. So I've wet that, and what I'm going to do is just blotter that a bit so it doesn't lose too much of the... Normally I just let it dry naturally. Now I'm going to put a bit of bright colours up here. I know in my mind what I'm going to do. So it's hard for a person watching this to see why is he doing that there. But I know when I do my process on this, this is going to come through, but not much, but it'll come through a bit. Now I'm using the darks, which are going to be indigo blue, ultra blue, a touch of purple to give me a lovely stormy colour. And we can put that all the way across there. All the way across. And as I come down towards the horizon, I'm just going to get a bit bluer. I want a bit darker at the top here, a bit more indigo up here. Oh, never mind. Thing to do is not get too precious about this. You see I made a mistake there, a little bit of colour down here, but that won't matter because I know in my mind what's going to happen to the foreground. I know I can fix that up when the foreground gets done. A bit of red up in there. Let that run down to there. And what I'm going to do now is get some tissues, scrunch them up, not too tight, and roll them across here. And that's going to let the light come in from my stormy sky. Thing to do is not press it too hard because your fingers will go into the wet paper and leave indentations. I can use some of this paint, it's a bit thicker. You see it's not going to drop off. And I can dab it in here around these edges and they will stick to that because the tissue has dried the paper. It's also wet. It's just a matter of working out yourself, where do you want your light to come through. We let that dry naturally. I think looking at this now, it's a matter of intuition. I look at this now and I think I want a bit more out there. Just a bit of that. Love this area here with the red in it. Might bring this back under here a little bit. Very handy things, tissues, in watercolour painting. And I can let that go off now. Now because we're on this time restriction, we're also going to wipe the edge again, because if we don't wipe that edge, that water in that paint could run back into the paper and give what they call a cauliflower. It'll make it, because the water's the easiest place to go to is at the paper. Now what I do, normally I would let that go off a bit and do that hill, but because we've got these time restrictions, I will do a bit of the foreground, which is going to be similar to the last one, except we're going to just have rock dirt paddock. I can touch that on there and just bring a bit of that into the foreground. It won't matter at all. Square brush again, 1-inch square brush. Paint is, you couldn't get the paint any thicker than that. That's fine, it's going to be rocks. Leave a little bit of white showing through, it won't matter. A bit of the foreground colour down here. Ties the painting together, as we discussed before. I'll bring that in there. And that'll do for now until I do some more work on that in a minute. What I want to do is get that to dry off enough. So I'll just dry that with a hairdryer for a minute. It's still damp, so I can put my hill in and get that one out of the way. I can put the hill in with the ultra blue, a bit of purple. The hill can be darker today on this one because of the sky's darker. You'll notice, if you can see in closer there, you can see the paper is still damp and you get these little lovely little indentations of the paint going up into that paper, which could give you the effect of the trees on the top of the hill. So it does it for you. We're going to put the other hill in front of it by going a bit darker. One of the hard things to judge is the amount of water to paint. Because I've been doing this so long, I know how that's going to dry. When you do it yourself, you've got to practice and practice and practice. More experience will give you better results. So I'm going to put the hill in front here. You don't need a lot of paint when you paint watercolour. You can do a lot of work with very little materials. That's our hill there, so we'll dry that off. It's all about tonal values. Tone is the amount of water it's very easy with watercolour because the amount of water you put into the pigment to give the depth of colour. There are lots of ways to work out tone with tonal scales, but the colour is the amount of depth of colour in the colour. So now we're going to put the trees in, which are going to be the same sort of thing, a bit of indigo, a bit of purple. Because it's dark, the trees are going to be darker. Same things, same shapes. It's good to have a tree behind the roof of the house because the roof of the house is going to be quite bright because all that light showing on it. Underneath the veranda here it's going to be dark. Underneath this veranda here is going to be dark. Because the absence of light makes it dark. We're going to have a dark shed there. Some more trees. As soon as you put a tree over one of the hills in front, you get 3 dimension because it's an object in front of another object. It's going to give you the appearance of 3 dimension, which is what we're after. We're after appearance. We're painting impressions. And some fence posts along there. Fence posts along here. A few more trees out here. Scrub there and whatever. There's no need to paint the tops of the trees yellows and greens and all the rest of it because we're after that feeling. We wanted that summer storm where everything's all toned down. So we're going to dry that off. It's still a bit wet, so I'll do the foreground while that's drying off. I want to create a few rocks and bits and pieces in the foreground, so I'm going to use a burnt sienna and just dab over the ground. There's no particular place I'm putting these, I'm just using my intuition. I'm going to use a bit of the blue and a bit of the indigo for the shadows of the rocks, or the underside of the rock. And I'm going to use some water. Like we say, let the water do the work. You can see how thick that water is on there now. But you see, because it's the different specific gravity of the paints, they all run differently. And it creates a natural looking paddock of rocks. Bit bigger brush. Always use as big a brush as possible when you paint, whatever you paint. Just a matter of putting all the colours around and letting the water do the work. Because the house is there, I'm going to put more emphasis in this corner here. Balance the composition a bit. Right, now we'll leave that dry now and we'll come back and do the top. So what we've done now, we've done the foreground, we've done the sky, we've done the trees, and bold, just create the trees into bold shapes. The hills into tonal planes. I think Cotman said that. He was an English watercolourist from 1800s or something. So what we're going to do now is paint the house like we did last time, but we're not doing a rusty roof this time because we want the house to really show out with that light streaming through onto it. So we're going to do the walls of the house in a dirty cream colour. And we're just putting the shadow underneath the gutter of the veranda. Veranda posts, you've got a bit of a shadow on one. And we're doing the sheds, bit of a rusty roof out here. Water tank, just a galvanised iron colour. You'll always get a grey in your palette. You can always use all the colours mixed together or get a grey. So we're just going to fence posts, windmill. It's all about impressions, as we say. Then we just put the window in the front of the house, which is a bit wet, but we'll dry it off. Still a bit wet. Just got to dry that off a bit. The window's getting to be too big. End up being the size of a door. Same, just dark colours you got in your palette. And there it is. This roof here is going to have a shadow on it because the roof is blocking it. And there's our Stormy Sky. You'll notice how the foreground colour's got this indigo in it. That ties in with the sky. Indigo's got a lovely green tinge to it, as thunderstorms do. And that ties in with this. And you've got your eyesight comes up through here to the main feature, and the impact of the cloud and the thunderstorm. Same picture, different feeling. Okay?